Tuesdays is known as $2 Tuesdays at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, where you can get the hottest handicappers, best bet, or daily package for only $2.
All right, guys, welcome in, and happy Tuesday to you as we get ready. I cannot believe it, for week number 8. That's right, week 8 here of the college football season, and it happens to kick off tomorrow night. In fact, we've got a little action in a game from with Coastal Carolina and App State. That's one of the games we are going to cover here today, and we're going to do it with two of the finest, both coming off of very profitable weekends in college football. Mr. Tony Mejia here, as well as Dave Cokin. And Tony, speaking of that week 7 in college football, how was your weekend, my friend? What's going on this week at WagerTalk?
It was a great weekend all around, college and pro. I went 3-0 Friday and something like 21-10 or 19-10 on Saturday. It was a big, bulky thing, and I hit my 5%, so that was great. NFL was fantastic, even though most of the sharps lost, because everybody assumed that these lines were so soft that something was up, and it was one of those rare weekends where things unfolded as they should, and we got no backdoor covers and mostly blowouts of teams that did what they were supposed to do, which is very wild, especially in the throes of October. So that was good to see. And then obviously this week, the NBA starts tonight, and we have more college football tomorrow with the game we'll be talking about first, and more NFL starting Thursday, baseball playoffs in full swing, Champions League action. So, yeah, tons to do, and very happy to be busy.
All right, good stuff there. And Dave, great weekend for you on Saturday, college football. What else is going on right now on this Tuesday at WagerTalk.com for you?
Yeah, Saturday was good. College football was good last week, 4-1. My NFL was unspeakably awful. It was just terrible. My worst week in a long time in the NFL. Try and get that back on track this week. NHL's underway, and college basketball around the corner. I don't do as many sports as Tony, so my cards are a little more limited, but I'm very enthused about the college football card this week. I've already played 5 games and probably going to add 2 or 3 more. So this is looking like it's going to be my deepest college football card so far this season. I was waiting for a real good week, had one, and feel quite good about the games this week. A lot of good setups.
All right, good stuff, guys. Looking forward to it as well. Let's dive in here with tomorrow night's games. Robert, let's do it. All right, we're going to head to the Sun Belt. How about we talk a little Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers. Had to look that one up. Wasn't sure what a Chanticleer was. App State also Sun Belt, the two very best that they have, maybe 59.5 for a total 3.5 as an open. It's been a little while, Tony Mejia, since Coastal Carolina's played. I think it's been about 2 weeks since they beat Arkansas State. That was back on October the 7th, but they've got New Year's Bowl written all over them, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good football team that hasn't been tested at all. I mean, they've been blowing out teams. They're leading the country in scoring, just ahead of Ohio State and Pittsburgh. And they've done so with their toughest game being against Buffalo. So, take that for what you will. And I think that's what this line is getting at, because I think on paper, once you get the power ratings in, it becomes a little closer because Appalachian State is such a good home team. But Coastal Carolina with Grayson McCall has blown out everybody but Buffalo. They kind of played down to the competition there, but that was on the road. And their toughest game at home, again on paper, was Kansas, which is obviously Kansas. And they kind of let the Jayhawks hang around there for a little while before they took care of business and actually got the cover in the latter stages of the third and into the fourth. But this is going to be their toughest game of the season. It happens to be their toughest road game. So I do understand why the heavy sentiment is that this is a trap line, and it actually went from 3.5 to 2.5. And a lot of money line money is going to go in on Appalachian State to get some, pull off the home upset as a short home dog, simply because they can. Now, if you're going to do that, if you're pulling the trigger on that, you're counting on Chase Bryce to play up to his potential. And that is a kid that is all world, dripping with potential. He was Trevor Lawrence's backup first. He opened at Clemson, then had a horrible year at Duke, despite getting the tutelage of one of the top college quarterback gurus in the entire country. And now he's at Appalachian State, and he comes off a really poor effort against Louisiana, where the turnover woes bit him. And then you have an Appalachian State defense that really struggled to stop the run against the Raging Cajuns, and they're playing a diverse offense because Grayson McCall runs some option. They run multiple sets. Coastal has like 3 running backs that they employ. So this is a fun matchup. I'm really interested to see where Dave stands on this. When I saw it, I was all over Coastal. But again, this is one of those games where you tread lightly because the line is telling you Appalachian State is a live dog.
Dave, it was. I mean, it was one of those lines that kind of jumped off the page going, this team just got boat raced by Louisiana. They gave up 41 points here. What do you think we should be worried about, if anything, in this matchup?
A lot. There's only one thing that's keeping me from playing Appalachian State in this game, and that's the scheduling. And that's a big advantage for Coastal Carolina. It's big enough to get me away from the game because Coastal Carolina hasn't played since the 7th of October. That was a Thursday night game. And it's a quick turnaround for App State. Yeah. So you've got a definite freshness advantage on the Coastal Carolina side. But, and I'm not trying to take away from what the Chanticleers have done. I mean, they're 6-0. They're outgaining their opponents by 271 yards per game, which is extraordinary. But they haven't played anybody. Tony hit it. The best opponent they've played is Buffalo. And they only won that game by 3 points on the road. The rest of their games, an FCS game with Citadel, Kansas, which is one of the 10 worst teams in the country, UMass, which is one of the 10 worst teams in the country, UL Monroe, which is one of the 10 worst teams in the country, and Arkansas State, which right now might actually be the worst team in the country because they look like they've completely packed it in. And, they're just a disaster. So I don't know how good they are. I know Grayson McCall is really good. I know Reese White and Jones, a heck of a running back combination. Braden Bennett, they're deep at running back. They're loaded. But they haven't played anybody. And they're going in to play an App State team that got humiliated last week. I think the situation favors App State from that standpoint in terms of garnering value because nobody wants them and Coastal Carolina's killing everybody. So naturally, the betting action is on Coastal Carolina. But a couple of things, Tony mentioned one of them. The initial move on this game was actually towards App State. I'm not saying that you should just automatically follow sharp money. In fact, I tend to think that's actually not the thing to do. But in this case, that initial wagering on App State was telling, and now the other side is coming in and firing on Coastal Carolina. If it wasn't for the scheduling, I'd be taking the Mountaineers plus the points here. Not that they've been a great team this year. They haven't, but they're not this much worse than Coastal Carolina. If the Chanticleers go in and win this game by a lot, then they're even better than advertised. I would lean App State. I'm not going to bet the game, though, because the scheduling does absolutely favor the Chanticleers.
Yeah, it's a tough scheduling spot for App State. But guys, I don't have to wait too long. That's Wednesday, that game. We're going to move on to Friday to the Mountain West if we can, Robert. Let's talk a little Colorado State taking on Utah State here to kick off the Mountain West competition. 54.5 as an open for a total. Colorado State opens as just a point favorite here as they head on the road, 9:30 Eastern time kickoff here, Dave. What do you think of these two teams here at this point in the season? What can you make out about them?
Well, Utah State got off to a great start. Blake Anderson had them sizzling early, and they were really one of the big surprise teams in the country. They go in and beat Washington State on the road, got a nice home win against an FCS team, North Dakota, played very well in that game, and then go out and beat an Air Force team on the road. That's impressive because the more you've seen from Air Force, the more you're impressed. The Boise State loss was a little misleading. They kind of hurt themselves in that game, but then they did not play well at BYU. and they did not play well at UNLV. UNLV is terrible, and Utah State was pretty fortunate to win that game. They won the stats, but they were down in the fourth quarter and had to come back to win that game against the UNLV team that hasn't won a game since they beat Nevada at the end of the 2019 season. So I think reality has kind of set in for Utah State. Colorado State, I got to admit, is surprising me. I was not high on this team coming into the season. I was certainly not impressed with them early. They lost to South Dakota State, an FCS team, at home. Lost to Vanderbilt, which is somewhat embarrassing because Vanderbilt is just awful. But then, since then, something happened. And while I'm not a Steve Adazio fan, he's turned this team around. A real nice win at Toledo. Not that Toledo's a top 20 team or anything, but that's still a good win on the road against the MAC team. A very respectable loss to Iowa. They only lost by 10. And I know Iowa's offense isn't good, but it's still Iowa. It's a Big Ten team on the road. And they played them basically even up. They lost the game closer than the final score indicates. Get a good win over San Jose State, and then take care of business last week in throttling New Mexico. Team's on a roll right now. And what I'm impressed with more than anything, I guess, is their rushing defense, which has been really brilliant the last 4 weeks. They're not giving up anything on the ground. And Utah State, not a team that throws the ball particularly well. I think you ride the momentum here. It's going well for the Rams. I see no reason that it doesn't continue to go well here. I think there's two teams in the opposite direction right now, and I would look at Colorado State to get the win and cover.
Dave brings up a good point, Tony. I mean, defensively, when you look at these two teams, you've certainly got to give the edge. You look at this Colorado State team and what they've been able to do here. This is another line where you're going Colorado State on the road as a favorite over Utah State. What do you make of this game?
Yeah, I was surprised to see Colorado State favored, and then I wasn't surprised to see that everybody jumped on the Rams as a result. Line went from 1, as we mentioned, to 3.5 now. And it's puzzling because at this point, the West Division of the Mountain West looks like the quality division, because you know what to expect from San Diego State. They're going to grind you. You know what to expect out of Nevada. They've got so many nice skill players, and Carson Strong, who looks like a pro, and their defense is good enough to get by. And Fresno State is really impressed at every turn. In the Mountain Division, you don't know anything. Boise State blew that 21-0 lead in Orlando to start the Avalos era, and then they've just been all over the place, losing to Air Force. Air Force does look like the most consistent team out of everybody. And this Utah State team beat them. And Utah State has one of the most dynamic wide receivers in the conference in Devin Tompkins. But outside of him, Dave is right. They don't pass the ball very well. And they're going to face a rush defense that just completely shut down New Mexico to the point where they allowed 69 yards in the entire game against the Lobos team that I don't think Terry Wilson played, the Kentucky transfer, but they were just decimated and couldn't do anything the entire game. And again, this Colorado State team is one that you can't get a grip on, because I expected them to lose at home against San Jose State. It was a sandwich spot, and this is actually the 4th road game in 5 contests that the Rams will have played, and that was the lone home game against the Spartans. And they came in completely injured in that game on both sides of the ball, and they blew out the defending Mountain West champions. Did so really convincingly in their best performance of the season, and they've had some good ones against Iowa, against Toledo, on the heels of a disaster against Vanderbilt. I was on them against the Rams, watched in horror as they blew that game in the second half and had nothing. And then you kind of got on the, Adazio was washed up bandwagon. All of a sudden, he has really rallied that group. So I don't know what to do with this game. Utah State, because of the fact that they sleepwalked through that UNLV game, should have a lot of energy because it came off a bye. And so you figure that a Blake Anderson that everybody understands as a player's coach. He was at Arkansas State. He clearly got everybody's attention here. I don't know what to make of that UNLV performance, but I think his team will be ready to play on the heels of losses to Boise State and BYU and sleepwalking at UNLV, particularly at home. But if you're going to touch Utah State and take the points, be aware that they are much healthier now. They did lose a couple of players against New Mexico, but their running back David Bailey's back, and their top wide receiver Dante Wright, who's a true game breaker, has gotten more and more acclimated after a very early injury. So he's comfortable. We may see points here. That may be the way to go if the weather cooperates. A really interesting game, and probably one that I'll stay away from.
Yeah, it should be an interesting game here. A little Mountain West action on Friday, guys. Get ready for it. And then, of course, Saturday. And what better place to start than the Big Ten here, Robert? Oh, Ohio State. The Ohio State taking on Indiana in this one. 18.5, 19.5, 20.5. Does it really make a difference? 60.5 for a total. And what a difference a year makes here, Dave. Boy, this was a entertaining and close game last year. I'm not so sure we're going to have that close a game this year. What do you think about Indiana's chances here?
The Ohio State Express right now. They're rolling. They're firing on all cylinders. They're once again looking like a team that's got a real good chance to make it to the playoffs. I know they lost to Oregon, but they might not lose again. And I'd be very surprised if this game is competitive. Talked last week about the Indiana game with Michigan State and how Jack Tuttle is just not a guy you can put money on. He's just not a good college football quarterback. I know he came out of high school with, accolades, but he just hasn't improved at all. And the quarterback spot for Indiana is really in flux right now with Penix being hurt and Tuttle just not having much ability. What are they going to do against this Ohio State team? I just don't see how they're going to be able to stay in this game for 60 minutes. I think they're going to fight like crazy. Indiana's still making the effort, but this season clearly getting away from them. And I guess their best hope is to stay competitive early, and maybe Ohio State has a flat spot here. I mean, that's the one thing you can look at is Ohio State coming up for them, Penn State, and then at Nebraska. I don't know how important at Nebraska is at this point, as the Scott Frost Express to nowhere is at full speed right now. But certainly the Penn State game next week is absolutely enormous. That's probably going to decide who stays in it and who doesn't in the Big Ten. So it's an easy game to overlook in terms of the opponent. But I mean, and I know it hasn't been against phenomenal competition, but their offense right now, 41 against Tulsa, 58 against Akron, 52, I believe it was, against Rutgers, and then they just killed Maryland and put 66 on the board in that game. And actually, they might have been able to put 80 on the board in that game if they wanted to. Stroud is really putting it together. I don't see any way to make a case for the home dog here, so it's Ohio State or pass.
It's tough. Listen, I don't know what they did to piss off the schedulers there, Tony Mejia, at Indiana, but good Lord. I mean, these first couple of Iowa, Cincinnati, Western Kentucky, Penn State, Michigan State. Oh, yeah, now Ohio State. Not an easy obstacle here. What do you think Indiana is going to bring to the table, if anything?
Well, the AD makes the schedule, but fate just happened to have Cincinnati with their best team ever. And Western Kentucky with a quarterback that can light chop. And obviously Iowa is a conference game and all the other people are. But look, here's what I was looking to hear is how focused Ryan Day gets his team, because the most important thing that happened this past week at Ohio State was the announcement that the Penn State game next week will be at night. Simple. You're going to walk over Indiana and Bloomington because Tuttle's the quarterback and they can't move that football. And we just saw that against Michigan State. Even though the Hoosiers had their chances, they could have been a little more aggressive and probably come out of that game with a win. Instead, they let Sparty hang around, and then Michigan State, to their credit, has found ways to win this season and did so again. Ohio State's a machine. Really won't spend much on this. I love Travion Henderson, the running back. I think he's a pro, and that makes the fact that him and Major Teague have gotten the ground game going makes life easier for the entire passing game, which is probably the most prolific in the country. So, yeah, looking forward to the Penn State game. That'll be next week. As far as this, it's Ohio State to cover or bust. 20 points, that's awfully enticing.
Yeah, no, it certainly is here, guys. All right, that is Saturday. We got one more we'll break down for you, and that is going to be in the ACC. Let's take a look here, Robert. Georgia Tech taking on Virginia in this one. Opens up with Virginia a touchdown favorite. Total is 60. And Dave, I don't know what the hell that was with Duke, but my word, a lot of frustration looks like they took out against that Duke team. Virginia firing on all cylinders defensively and offensively, taking on this Tech team now. What do you think about Virginia's performance last week, and does it mean anything heading into this week?
No, because Duke can't play, and Virginia got out early and they just did whatever they wanted to do, and Duke is pretty bad. But look, this is a good team. You look at what they've done this year: destroyed Illinois. Tough win against Miami, but they did win the game. A real thriller at Louisville, but they did win the game. They did get killed at North Carolina, and they got beat up by Wake Forest at home. But I think those might have been somewhat aberrational. Brennan Armstrong's a terrific quarterback. He'll make the occasional bad pass, but he's pretty good. And nevertheless, and this is the one troubling thing about this team. They're not very well balanced. And that does concern me against a defense that can play a little bit in Georgia Tech. They want to throw the ball all the time because they don't run it very well. Georgia Tech, I'm having a tough time getting a gauge on the team, to be honest with you. They've been maddeningly inconsistent. You lose to Northern Illinois, a winnable game at Clemson against the Clemson team that's turned out to be just pretty much pathetic offensively, and they weren't able to get the win there. Just an absolutely horrible performance against Pittsburgh, which was even uglier than the score indicates, and they lost the game by 31. And yet, they've also got a really great win against North Carolina. I mean, that was a tremendous performance against the Tar Heels. I hate to get into comparative scores, but I kind of will here. I think the one that sticks out to me is the fact that they actually had trouble with Duke. They lost the yards in the game. They were hard-pressed to get a victory over what I think is a pretty bad Duke team and get the win by 4. Virginia killed them last week. Normally don't want to look at those things. And by the way, you can balance it off by saying, well, Virginia got killed by North Carolina and Georgia Tech played its best game against North Carolina. But I'm starting to think that North Carolina game was kind of a fluke and that it just was a day where everything went wrong for North Carolina, and Georgia Tech's defense had an absolutely great game. I think they had 8 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. I mean, they just had a really good game, and North Carolina had a really bad game. The more I look at these teams, the more I think that Virginia is just better than Georgia Tech. And if nothing else, they've got momentum coming out of last week's game. Now, Georgia Tech has had an extra week to prep for this game, and maybe they can get some things fixed. But I just based on what I've seen from the two teams thus far, I have a little more reliability on Virginia. I'm not prepared to lay the points in the game because, again, Georgia Tech has been maddeningly inconsistent. I think I said that earlier, and it still rings. They're teams that I try and stay away from because you really never know which version's going to show up. But if I had to bet the game, I'd have to be on the Cavaliers.
All right, looking at the Cavalier. What do you think about Georgia Tech having an extra week here to prepare? Tony, make a difference when you look at this one way or the other?
Yeah, it can't hurt, Joe. I mean, at this point, they got to watch the stink out of that Duke game. More time for the Jordan Yates and Jeff Sims quarterback derby to play out in practice. And both those guys are young and need reps. So from that standpoint, I think they have a really good shot to be competitive against Virginia. This is me in the early block of this past weekend. The Virginia-Duke game was, I think, the one that I was most focused in on. It started just after the noon Eastern kick. So it was like a 12:30 start. I sit there and I'm watching the noons early, and then it's flipped to watch this game. And I'm expecting Mateo Durant to run all over to run all over Virginia so we can get the game going in terms of a little bit of a high-scoring derby that I expected before Virginia pulled away. I'm laying 10.5, and the total's in the 69-70 range. And Duke scored 0 points, as we all know. And Durant is a hell of a running back. That's all Duke has at this point. And the fact that Virginia was able to corral them and then take the lead early really took Duke completely out of what they wanted to do. And I think you can then flush that. So Brennan Armstrong is talented enough to beat a Georgia Tech defense in the way that Kenny Pickett did. So you can kind of throw the Clemson game away, but at the same time, what they were able to do against North Carolina, I think, plays, because then Sam Howell is a pro quarterback as well. I just think this Virginia team, when they struggled this season at UNC against Wake Forest, Wayne Talapapa was out. Hindered, I think, in the first game and completely out in the second game, and he is the entire running game for them. He gets the tough yardage. He is the pass protector. They really need him. So I think they'll be able to win this game against Georgia Tech. I would probably lean towards laying the 7 as a result, because they'll be healthier. Georgia Tech lost a tight end in the off week. The bye week throws me a little bit. But this bottom line, Armstrong is fantastic. His arm talent is great. He's more mobile now. It looks like the knee brace has helped. And Virginia, this particular team, is good enough to finally broken the Bronco Mendenhall can't win on the road in Virginia and ACC play jinx, because they've won at Miami and they've won at Louisville. Both of those teams are mediocre, but it counts for something. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next week when Bronco goes to BYU with this Virginia squad. And I think he'll do so coming off a victory. Will they cover? It'll probably be right in the neighborhood of 7 to 10 points.
Be interesting. Number 22 in scoring offense. That's what this Virginia team is bringing to the table this year. They can score with the best of them. Georgia Tech taking on Virginia. ACC matchup, guys, on Saturday. And that does it here. We got 4 games starting tomorrow. We got one Friday, and, of course, a couple over the weekend we broke down for you. It is time now to see which one of these games these guys might be leaning towards a little bit more than the others. And, Tony Mejia, I'll come back to you. Which one of these do you like a little bit more than the others?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by 3 of the 4 matchups, so I'll go with the 4th one, the layup. Lay me the points with Ohio State, and hope that there's no backdoor cover, because I just don't see the Buckeyes being challenged in Bloomington.
All right, likes that. No, none of that there, Dave. How about you, my friend? Which one of these do you lean in towards a little more?
Yeah, I can't disagree with Tony, and I probably should have went with Ohio State, but I decided to go with the arrow up, arrow down route. Now, none of these 4 games are going to make my card. I'm going to have a deep card this week, but these 4 didn't qualify. But the strongest lean out of the bunch, Colorado State's moving forward right now. Whatever Adazio's selling, the Rams seem to be buying. I think Utah State, after a great start to the season, is going in the other direction. Was very unimpressed with them in their narrow win at UNLV over the weekend. I think Colorado State does enough to get the win and cover in this game.
All right, Colorado State on the road, getting it done against Utah State here, guys. And that does it. But don't forget, if you head over to WagerTalk.com, you can visit Tony Mejia's page as well as Dave Cokin's page. Dave told you he's got his plays locked and loaded already. Loves the college football card this weekend, guys. You can head over there and get those locked up now. Get them before the lines move. It's always a really good idea sooner rather than later. And Tony Mejia also ready to go here. NBA starting this week here, guys. Of course, MLB playoffs still going, and Tony's on top of them all. So head over to Tony Mejia's page and, of course, Dave Cokin's page. And make sure you come back and join us again tomorrow all week long as we continue to break down college football games for week number 8 in the season. It's hard to believe we're there already. Recap, Tony Mejia, Ohio State, lay it against Indiana. And Dave likes Colorado State. Going on the road, taking on Utah State and getting it done. Appreciate the time, guys. Make sure you hit that bell in the upper right-hand corner. And for those of you waiting for the NBA season to begin, it's almost here, as well as a new season of the NBA Tip-Off Show coming your way here in just a few. Make sure you hit that bell, guys. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Good luck with your plays tonight.
The NBA regular season tips off next week, and Kevin the Irishman Dolan is looking for his 3rd straight winning NBA season after absolutely crushing the books last season with 62% in profit for clients, including going 12-4 on all 5% best bets on the hardwood. Lifetime, the Irishman is number 2 in the NBA, producing close to 100% in profit and cashing an incredible 78% of all 5% best bets in the NBA. Get on board the Irish NBA money train this year and get Kevin's entire season-long NBA through finals package for only $4.99 when you use coupon code Celtic200 at checkout, taking $200 off current early bird pricing. Act fast, as this $200 discount will expire when the Warriors and Lakers tip off on Tuesday, October 19th.